Hey everybody, it's Ken Davenport. Welcome back to the Producer's Perspective Live. We are here with Tony Award winner, Grammy Award winner, the composer, lyricist, and book writer of Hadestown, Anaïs Mitchell, and she's got a brand new book that she released today. She's going to tell us all about it next. Mary, take it away.
We're getting the band back together, getting the boys who rock to rock again. We're getting the band back together in the midst of a place that remembers when some punks from the suburbs lit the sky with too much reverb. We're getting the band back together.
Hey everybody, welcome back. I missed you all. Hello everybody. There's Alan and Tony. Ooh, Tony's an early adopter. Got Anaïs' book already. Working on a song. Arrived today. Look at that. Ka-ching. I love it. Megan Ann is here in the house. Hello to you. Good to see you again. How did you all like last week's episode with Leia? For those of you who were here for last week's episode, it was not live, so I had the week off. It was recorded because she's in the Philippines. I hope you enjoyed it. You can check it out on replay in case you missed it. You can check out all of our episodes on replay. And guess how many episodes there have been? You don't want to know. You really don't want to know how long Hadestown has not been running. It's really, really unfortunate. I want to see it again. We're on episode number 75 tonight. Episode number 75. God, help us all. I'm just teasing. We've been having a good time doing these, and it's been one of the blessings of this thing, and there are blessings in this moment. We've discovered a whole new community of live stream watchers, so I'm thrilled to be here once again. And we've been getting great guests, like Anaïs here tonight, who I've never actually met. So this is one of those wonderful moments where the pandemic is bringing people together. We need like a chime, like it's a Hallmark movie or something there. So welcome back. Oh, there's Sierra. And Alyssa is here, who says, awesome, I love it. Oh, Alyssa, I wonder who you're voting for in a few weeks. You should just be a little more subtle about that next time. A little more subtle. Don't forget about the replays. We did the replays, 75 replays. We've got a great lineup for you in the coming weeks. We have Katori Hall coming next week. Look at that. And John Logan and Cheyenne Jackson, my original Matthew from Alter Voice from way back in the day. Katori, I'm super excited about because our schedules have never actually matched and we haven't been able to do anything together. Cheyenne just did a video for me. It was great to connect with him again. So we're going to have some good times in the next month. So tune in. We're also doing a whole bunch of other live events. I'm addicted now to streaming shit. That's right. I'm addicted to it. So in addition to this live stream, I'm just throwing a whole bunch of against the wall. And it's Kate Rockwell's doing a wine tasting event for us next Saturday from Mean Girls. We're producing that event. I just announced last week this incredible guy group called the Doo-Wop Project. We're going to do their live stream. That's right. They are going to gather in a theater in New York City. I'm telling you, this group is amazing, and wait till you hear them do like Jersey Boy stuff and all the doo-wop stuff and Motown stuff. But one of the reasons I really wanted to produce it is I get to be in a theater again. It's from New World Stages, very safe, lots of strict COVID protocols. But I'm just excited to be in a theater again. So we're doing that on October 25th. Check that out. And then the big thing, listen, if you like these kind of conversations with people, if you've enjoyed the live stream, we are doing, I throw this every year, our Theater Maker Conference, which we've renamed now called the Theater Makers Summit. And this year, the theme is Making Theater in a New World. And we have the most amazing set of speakers lined up. And this is just a handful. I just booked like 3 more today. And they're so big, I can't even tell you about them because their people have not authorized me to tell you yet. But everyone from Tom Schumacher, the head of Disney, Charlotte St. Martin, the head of the league, Colleen, Chris Jackson, like all sorts of people. from our industry, all talking about making theater in the new world. It's coming up November 14th and 15th. If you love conversations like this, you got to come. You got to come. It's going to be great. I was bummed that it had to be virtual this year, like 6 months ago. Now I'm so excited because everyone I'm asking to speak is saying yes because they don't have anything else to do. They can't say, oh, I'm in rehearsal. Oh, I've got a show that night. No, they don't. They don't. So hopefully I will see you there. Let's get to today's guest. Enough of this stuff about guests in the future. Let's talk about the guest that we have today. She is an incredible singer-songwriter that we pulled over to the good side of the force. And she became a Tony Award winner. And she was named one of Time's most influential people of 2020. I mean, that's pretty incredible. Please welcome her to the live stream, Anaïs Mitchell. Welcome.
Hi, Ken.
Hi.
Thank you so much for having me. This is actually my first live stream.
You're kidding me.
I know, it's crazy. I've done some things that were like meant to seem live, but they weren't really live. But this is really live.
Yeah, it's totally
vouch.
live.
Yeah.
It's totally live. I should hold up a newspaper or something that shows Trump like with his mask off or something. But we won't get into that. Well, welcome to the live stream world. I'm shocked that you've avoided it this long.
I know. It's crazy because right when everything started shutting down, I had a baby. I had our second baby, who's now like, thank you. Yeah, she's 6 months old now, and so we were just like in a cave. We didn't really. I wasn't engaging virtually in the way that like a lot of my friends and peers were. So I was actually. I was saying earlier that I'm like the person on the Zoom conference who like doesn't know how to. How to mute themselves at the right time. That's me.
No one does.
Yeah.
Don't worry about it. No one does. Everyone's all over the place. So question number one, do we have photos of this baby? Anaïs, do you have photos of this baby? Can you show them? No?
I have photos, but I don't know how to get, I'm like such a tech dunce.
Just show it to the camera.
With my phone, show it?
Yeah, sure. It works. I think we did this with someone else's kid.
All right, hold on 1 second. I got to turn my phone on.
We gotta see this. While we wait for your phone to come on.
Yeah.
When did you have the baby? Was it literally during shutdown?
Yeah. So here's what happened, and I'm in Vermont right now, which is my like home state where I was. Yes, I was born and raised here, but I was living in Brooklyn, and things started to get weird, and I was 38 weeks pregnant, and it was like. Man, there was talk about like you can't bring your husband in the hospital if you have to go to the hospital. We were trying to have a home birth, and I just was like, we got to get out of here, and we packed everything in a car, and we had the baby a week later in Vermont. So that was like I think Broadway shut down on the 12th of March, right? Mm-hmm. And we left on the 13th, and then the baby was born on the 21st. So. Here, I'm going to show you.
Baby.
Totally.
And the name?
So her name is Rosetta. Oh, this is a good one. This is, I don't know if you can see this.
Oh, adorable.
That's Rosetta.
It's your exclusive, everybody. You're like People Magazine, like exclusive Rosetta photo. I love it. So this must have been strangely like that's one of the blessings is you've been to be up there and just be around your daughter all the time instead of
it was really special. And actually, so we had her on my parents' farm. My parents have this little sheep farm, which is where I grew up, and my parents have a house, and then my brother's family has a house, and we were living in the little house that used to belong to my grandparents. So it was like. Surrounded by total lockdown, and it's surrounded by family, and this little baby like got to spend her first few months just like that. So it was pretty sweet, and but at a time when so many people were suffering, it was like it felt. I mean, everyone is in their own situation, but it just was like the cognitive dissonance of like what how healthy we felt, and how unhealthy the world is.
So how did you? Growing up on a sheep farm in Vermont, how did you find music? Like where did that, and then the creative instinct that you wanted to that you didn't want to take classical piano or any of that. You wanted to, I'm going to be singer-songwriter living on a farm?
So my parents were like hippie back to the landers. There's a lot of those in Vermont. People that moved like in the late 60s, early 70s, and they started farming. And so my dad is and was a writer of novels and like memoirs. And for me, like words were always important to me. Writing was important to me. And it wasn't until I was maybe in high school that I realized like songwriting was the way that was my way into that world. But like I grew up with a lot of hippie stuff, folk music, Rise Up Singing Songbook. My mom is Quaker. There was like singing at the Quaker meeting. It was like shape note stuff, and my parents were big music fans, and they have a great record collection. A lot of like folk revival stuff and like psychedelic rock and stuff like that. So I definitely fell in love with music at a very young age. Yeah. And then I think I sort of I really came of age musically with people like Ani DeFranco and Dar Williams and like Tori Amos and this really strong like female singer-songwriter thing that happened in the 90s. And I was like, that's what I want to do. I want to just see what I can do with the guitar and just my voice. And so that was my way into like the folk world and the coffee shop world and stuff like that. Coffee house.
So being so cool and so hip as you are, how the heck did you fall into musical theater after that? Because let's face it, that's just not usually what we are. Tell us about, I actually watched an interview of you today from way back where you were talking about a new album that you released after Hadestown. And you were describing like, this thing I wrote, and it's like this opera and there are characters and other people sing. When you wrote it, when you created it, were you like, oh, this is going to be a musical someday? Like, tell us a little bit about how you started that process.
Yeah. So it was a really long gestation, this show. It began in 2006 and 2007 in Vermont, where I was living at the time. And it was meant for the stage. The earliest version of it was this DIY community theater production. And I had just like written a handful of songs. I roped in a couple collaborators, the early director and designer named Ben Matchstick, and one of the two orchestrators, Michael Chorney, were people that I knew in Vermont, and our friends played all the characters, and we put up this just like wild and woolly like version of this story, and it was kind of magical. Like, even though it was more abstract back then, there was a lot less material. There was something like magical about it. And a couple years later, I started working on an album of the music, and so that was a whole nother phase where like we were just focusing on it as a music piece. And so Michael Chorney and also Todd Sickafoose, the other orchestrator who produced that album, were able to work on the sound of the thing, and we had like all these amazing guest singers singing the roles of the characters. And then we toured with it as like a music piece for a couple of years. And then fast forward a couple more years, I was living in New York, and I really wanted to expand it further for the theater again. But I didn't quite know, who the partners were for that. And then I saw Natasha Pierre and the Great Comet of 1812 at Ars Nova. And just totally fell in love with that show, and with Rachel Chapkin's work, and was introduced to her. And then we started working, and it was, I think, 3 years before we were off Broadway. Then we went to Edmonton, then we went to London, and then we went to Broadway in 2019. So it was a really long process, and the thing changed, between every iteration was different.
How much of it is the same since that first community theater production?
Mm-hmm. Well, I will say some of the, like, what I think of as the iconic songs are from those early years, like Why We Built the Wall, When the Chips Are Down, Our Lady of the Underground. There were half as many songs back then, but some of them are the ones that I think of as kind of like the tent poles of the thing. And then it was a question of like it being essentially a staged concert at first, and then wanting to take it further towards becoming like a more generous act of dramatic storytelling. And for me, like, I didn't have training in that. So it was a real crash course with like holding the hand of Rachel Chavkin and like our dramaturg and the producers, and like just trying to figure out how to take the thing as far as it could go toward the theater without breaking what was working about it as like a piece of music.
So what, I have so many questions for you, but I have to go back to the first one before I forget it. How many other albums did you write during this whole period? Like, just your singer-songwriter album. Like, you have 7 albums done, or?
I don't know. I've lost track. I made a couple before I made Hadestown, just regular songwriter records. And then I think over the course of like between Vermont version and working in New York, I put out a couple of other albums that were, one was a songwriter album, and the other was a collection of like adaptations of really old English and Scottish and Irish like folk ballads, which is one of my passions, is that kind of traditional music and traditional balladry. So, and that's something I'm again working on, this new folk band called Bonnie Light Horseman. So it's sort of like part of my heart is always in that world.
And did along the way, so you're doing the singer-songwriter thing, you're very successful. Did you have anyone from the music industry like, you gotta like forget this theater thing? Like, what are you doing? Like, focus on what you do, what you're doing so well at it. For that theater thing is just not on brand with you. Did you have any resistance there?
That's interesting. Well, I know for sure that like there were people waiting for a new record from me, and they kind of still are, because it actually has been, I want to say like 8 years since I made a record of just my songs. But I also feel like I had so much support there's been so much like goodwill and support for this project. And there's a way in which I think like the kind of songwriting that I've always been into, which is connected to those old ballads and stuff, is really about storytelling. Yeah. And like the Texas songwriter thing, there's like Townes Van Zandt, like Guy Clark, all those guys. I used to go to these folk festivals, and especially when I was just getting going, like, there's this one in Texas called the Kerrville Folk Festival. It's like legendary, and it's 3 weeks long, and you're camping out, and you're like, go from campfire to campfire with your guitar, and you try to like, capture people's attention. And it's all about the story and the lyric, and people are really listening with that kind of ears. Like, in a way, it's more like a poetry. It's like a poet at the lectern, but you happen to have a guitar. It's really focused on the words. And I found the theater world just like so into text, so into, the minutia of like how the story gets rolled out. And also what was so refreshing is like in the theater, people love to talk about ideas, love to give feedback and talk about ideas and like, what does this mean? And how does this relate to this other thing? Whereas I do find in the music world, it's sort of like, you don't talk about it. It's more, you're supposed to feel it or you don't feel it. But it's a little less sort of hard on the sleeve in terms of like, well, what are we talking about here? What are we dealing with these lyrics?
Did you go through like collaboration shock? I mean, you're a singer-songwriter that is used to like being by yourself on a sheep farm, like writing songs, and then all of a sudden you got directors, you got designers, you got producers giving their opinion, you've got actors saying, like, how did you deal with all that?
Yeah, well, there was a huge learning curve for sure. I mean, that was part of the whole thing, was like just me trying to figure out what's my role in the room, even as a writer. I remember feeling that when we had our production at New York Theater Workshop, our off-Broadway production. It was like, what's my job in the rehearsal room as a writer? Can I make a comment? Should I be silent? I have to rewrite this thing like immediately. Should I just go home? And like that was a lot of learning. And I have to say, like, I give so much credit to Rachel for being just an incredible captain of the ship, and dealing with me, recognizing like what I needed from her, and also like in terms of resources for the in the room. And she also just has a lot of joy, like brings a lot of joy, I think, to everything that she works on. And so, yeah, I mean, there's so many people in like in a tech room, to everyone's got their little tables, and there's like the costumes and the lighting guy, and there's like it's totally fascinating, and I love it. Like I miss that. I mean, I know you feel that too, but just that the theater is so collaborative, and in order to make a musical, you just have to have all these different brains kind of focusing their desires and their attention in the same vector. It's really something to be part of.
Well, I love how you came into the business, obviously so humble, and so like I want to learn and I want to soak it up, but I want to flip it around a little bit and say, like, I love when artists from other industries, incredibly talented ones, especially like yourself, come in and join us and create and bring their unique art form to it. What's something that you think the theater industry can learn from the singer-songwriter world, and how you created what you can do, that we could do a better job at storytelling if we just...
Interesting. Yeah, I do think it does feel, and it's funny because I just wrote this book about the lyrics of Hadestown. It's all about the text, and that was so much the focus of rewriting this show again and again, was like, it's the text. And I remember Rachel saying, if you want it in the show, if you want it on the stage, put it in the text. Like, but there is something about Hadestown having come out of the music world. And I think especially the fact that like we made this studio record in 2010, like long before the New York Theater Workshop production, and where basically it was all of the energy was focused on the music and like how do we want this music to sound? Michael Chorney, Todd Sikafus are both so brilliant at what they do, and their voice is very present in the music. And I think I'm guessing that for a lot of shows, like the orchestrations are not baked in from an early stage. Do you know what I mean? It's kind of like you write the thing, it's just like one person on a piano and you're singing it, and then maybe when you get a production, you're like, okay, we got to get the orchestrators in here. And ours was the other way around. So I think the thing is that like music has its own logic, and it has emotional logic, and it is an event. Like the way that the music of a particular song makes you feel is an event alongside of like whatever text happened, whatever linear kind of dramatic storytelling happened. Like the feeling of that music also happened to all of us at the same time. And so I think that's something that's been different about Hadestown that I think might be useful for other shows.
Are you do you have a desire to write another musical? Are you writing another musical? I hope the answer is yes. Asking for a friend.
So I'm like, I was very excited to get back to the music world. Like it's been actually a long time since I felt like I was writing songs just for, not even just for me, but just for the muse, or like a song that could go anywhere. Like it could go any direction. And I think that's some of the beauty of like, just writing a song, is that there's a mysterious core and you kind of follow it into the mystery and figure out what it wants to become. And that's true of writing a musical also, but there's also a lot more of a sort of like task vibe because, there's for me anyway, there's like a team of like, there's the dramaturg, there's, the director, and there's a lot of task oriented work that goes into that. Like whatever that song is going to be, it has to fill this gap of like this character and their arc is like missing this piece of the story. And so I'm really enjoying, this is long-winded way of saying like I'm really enjoying just kind of following my bliss right now in the song world and with my folk band. But I would love to write another musical. I mean, I think I was blindsided by how long it took and the extent to which it like took over my life. But I would love to do it again, when the right moment arises. So I'm kind of just waiting, biding my time.
And if something like hit you tomorrow, would you do it the same path? Would you like, I'm going to do a concept album first? Like this is going to be my thing. Would you think you'd roll it out the same way? And would you encourage other theater makers to do it that way as well?
I think just for me, just like my path, I would probably want to write with a book writer. like, you know.
But you did so well yourself last time. Why?
It took like a decade and a lot of hand holding to make it happen. So I just think I love plays and playwrights and what they can do. And I think like it could be really fabulous to just write the songs for a thing, and not have to deal with like the recitatives, interstitial material type of thing. So I would probably go about it differently. And there are stories that I think would be awesome to tell musically. But it would probably be a question of like finding the right collaborator. And okay, so would you make an album first? I see no reason why not to, I think that's actually a thing I've seen with sort of folks from the music world. Like I know that, didn't Sarah Bareilles make like an album of the Waitress music that was just her? And I know like I have these friends in the band The National, and they did this musical. Now I'm trying to remember what it's called. Cyrano. It was a Cyrano musical, and they're like making an album of that music. I think it's beautiful to hear the different take of what an actor brings. And then what like a music muso person brings.
And just to switch gears and talk a little bit about the current state of the world right now, how are you staying creative during this period? Like this is a time where a lot of people it's like a roller coaster of so many emotions for all of us. What are you doing to make sure you keep writing while you're up there and keep working and keeping creating?
Yeah. Well, I will say for many months I was not, we have a 7-year-old and then a new baby, and suddenly there was like no school. There was a lot of just like 24/7 parenting going on. And that was that was okay and appropriate because we had a new baby and things like that. I think, I guess I send this out to the parents because this is like a especially challenging time if you got kids in the house, especially if they're not able to go to school. We're lucky in Vermont that our kid is able to go to school 5 days. But just to carve out like a little space, if you can just carve out a little space each day, Oftentimes I think maybe you've felt this, like you can go to extremes, like when you get overloaded with like the mundane things, you're like, I need a cabin in the woods for a year. And actually like, no, you don't need that. Like you would get bored after a week or whatever, but you do need 2 hours every morning or whatever it is. I think keeping that small flame alive that would be my advice.
It's so funny. I have literally said to myself, like, I need a lake house. I need a lake. No. I need a house on a golf course. No, I need, and no, I just need an hour to just relax.
Yeah.
Relax.
That's it.
So tell us about the book. Has the book been a project for you over this period as well? Or was it done beforehand? Tell us.
Yeah. I wrote a lot of it before the world kind of locked down. I started working on it, I think, last summer after the show was up. And these guys, Plume Books, which is part of Penguin Random House, they reached out to see if I wanted to publish a book of the lyrics of Hadestown just as they appear on Broadway. And I realized, like, I did want to do that and see them published in this sort of poetry form. But I also was really excited to publish a lot of the old and discarded, versions of the lyrics that I've been accumulating over the course of the long gestation of the thing. And so I started to do that and kind of compile those things. And then I realized I had to actually write some notes about, to contextualize like how these things changed and why. And then before I knew it, I was writing a book. And I wrote most of it while we were still in the pre-COVID era, but then there were some moments where I was like me and the laptop and like the baby's on my lap and I'm trying to, get the final edits in. So it feels great to have it be done and out in the world. And I hope, when I started writing it, I realized I was kind of like doing therapy with myself. Like I was kind of just like what happened to the last however many years of my life, and like what happened to that lyric that I loved from 4 years ago. I wanted to like write it out. And then partway through I started to get sort of hopeful and excited that this process could be useful to other people, and that it could be, especially creative people pursuing a vision, especially music people trying to cross into dramatic theater, that maybe that long process could be beneficial to somebody else to have like a little fly on the wall view of.
Can you give us an example of something that you cut or changed? It sounded like there was something that you were like, God, I love that, and I had to cut. Can you?
Yeah. There's so many things. Can I look at the book? And
Yeah, please.
Okay, all right. Because I think
we're gonna get a reading, everybody, from Anaïs right now from her brand new book.
Somebody else asked me the same question the other day, and the one that popped into my mind was there's this song in the second act which is called Chant Reprise. It's like it's kind of a big set piece with a bunch of different characters singing, and there always was a moment where do people know the show? Should I tell like the characters? So there are these two gods, these immortal gods, Hades and Persephone, and they have this troubled marriage, and the problem with their marriage is like the reason that things have gone wrong in the world. He's the king of industry and she's like the queen of nature, and like so in Chant 2, Persephone always had this verse that she sang, and we ended up cutting it because our second act was just like always too long, and it was kind of stealing thunder from the end of the show. And so finally, like in Broadway previews, I was like, I think we can let go of this verse, even though I was excited about it.
Was it the dramaturg's fault? Because I think
no.
he may be on right now, and he has a little.
Hi, that's amazing. No, Ken Cernelia is a treasure in the world of dramaturgy and theater in general, and so. Ken, I love you. That's so cool that you're watching this. But this was an interesting story because there was one preview that happened on Broadway where the material was necessarily, it was going to be the same as it had been at the afternoon show. And so I took like the night off because I was like, there's nothing new for me to check out. So I'm going to take the night off. And Ken was also away. Ken, I don't remember why, but you weren't there that night either. And
he's a hack. He's just slacking off. No, he's the best.
Totally committed, but for some reason this night neither of us was there, and it sort of opened up a space in the conversation for like a lot of folks who were on the creative team, like design people who like would often take a deferential sort of back seat in the dramaturgical conversations, which would be sort of dominated by like me and Ken and Rachel and Mara. So it was like the lighting designer and the costume designer and the sound engineers and like all this stuff. And they were emboldened by our absence, and they were like, "You guys, this is
don't take a night off ever again."
I know, they were like, "The second act is too long. You've got to cut something," and we were like, "Okay," and they were right, And actually, it's interesting because Rachel told me that it's sort of a moment, like a moment she's noticed is like a common event in the life of a production, where there's a moment where like the folks who are on the creative team but have sort of taken a back seat can no longer contain their opinions about what needs to happen to improve the show. And so it's sort of a healthy moment when it happens. But anyway, here was the casualty. Okay, so she goes, "When I was a young girl like you, this old world was younger too. We set it spinning hand in hand, me and a young man. Now you see what he's become, Hades with his heart of stone. I forgot what true love was, and then I heard your Orpheus. Take it from a woman of my age, there's nothing love can't change. Even where the bricks are stacked, love is blooming through the cracks. Even when the light is gone, love is reaching for the sun. It was love that spun the world when I was a young girl." So I just really liked the the love was blooming through the cracks because the wall is this theme in our show, and that love was reaching for the sun, like that this, it was love that spun the world. It felt like wow, that it had finally, after many rewrites, gotten to the place where I was like, hell yeah, that's the one. And then it was like, nope,
Bye-bye.
bye-bye. Yeah.
Well, that is incredible. I mean, everyone get this book. I've had a chance to look at it myself. It's just so fantastic whenever you can get an insight into a creator's vision and mind and see what made it, what didn't make it, because musicals, as we often know, are not written, they're rewritten. So to get a glimpse into your mind especially, which is a brilliant one, and I'm a huge Hadestown fan, and I've been so happy to see its success. As someone mentioned here, I mean, it's just an incredible story. Just such a story and I know it took a long time, and I'm sure there were many times that you wanted to be like, you know what, forget this. I'm just going to go back to writing simple songs. But I'm so glad you didn't give it up.
Me too. It was such a joy, and everyone that was part of it along the way, like. There's some of my favorite people in the world. It was nice to see the pictures of those actors just now, because so much of what we do in art, we do it for each other. And I'm going to get to talk to Patrick Page tomorrow night at this book launch we're doing, and I'm so excited to just talk to him again. It's been a long time since I was in a room with him, and there's a bunch of moments in this book where like. Patrick dropped some wisdom in some kind of a workshop that we did, and it totally changed the course of a song. So. And
how often were you going in, like popping in and checking in on the show? Were you there a lot? Are you one of those writers like I can't watch it anymore, or like I have to be there? Like what?
Yeah. No, it's always, every time we put a production up, there was this awkward like separation moment where suddenly I'd been living at the theater, like literally I was writing in the bathroom, the ladies' room of the Walter Kerr. That's where I would like write, because it was only like the only place I could go like that didn't have people in it. And I also like the sound. I like the sound of the guitar and like the reverberant bathroom. But I was living at this theater every day and like eating like from the shop around the corner. And then suddenly we opened and it was like, I didn't feel like I belonged there anymore, Like I know I can go, but it's like I definitely couldn't go in the ladies' room. A lot of people.
You'll never fit there now. It's like you were there the one time people weren't in a ladies' room on Broadway.
That's true. But yeah, I didn't go that often. Once it was up, I would go sort of sneak in once in a while and see things and meet folks that came to the show sometimes. But I was also pregnant and living in Brooklyn, so the commute was I was like ready to go to bed at 9 p.m. But I hope that I can't wait for the day I can stand back there at the back of the room again.
Yeah, I can't either. Something tells me you'll be at that first performance.
That's going to be a miracle, right? When these shows start to reopen, the parties are going to be like, I guess the parties they're not going to be that great, are they?
Well, it depends. Depends on when it happens.
Yeah.
It depends on when it is and what's going on.
Yeah.
But it's certainly going to be a very special moment. And I will just, if you were afraid falling asleep or getting home too late, you better be prepared, because that first night, the ovation when your curtain goes up on your Tony Award-winning musical that first night, I mean, it's going to be going on for when Patrick Page opens his mouth and speaks. It's another 20 minutes of an ovation. Just people want to be in a room with him as well. Never mind your glorious musical. So
that's right.
Thanks for it. I certainly, I'm so thankful you're here tonight, and because just so I can tell you how much of a fan I am of your show, and I'm so happy you brought your cool self and hip self into the theater. You have such a unique voice, and that's always what works here, is stuff that's very unique. And I'm so thankful, and I hope you write another one.
Thank you. That means so much to me. Thank you. And I have felt so welcomed by the theater world, and a pleasure to talk to folks like you.
Well, it's been a pleasure. Thanks so much for joining us. Enjoy your time on the farm. And
thank you. Thank you so much. See you, Ken. Anaïs Mitchell, everyone. Go out and get the book. Get the book. It's fantastic.
I think Mary threw a link up in the comments. She should do it again, and she will because she's a crackerjack producer that she is. She'll throw another link up. You can get it on a little-known bookstore. It's very hard to find, called Amazon.com. Go ahead and check it out, and they'll have it to you by drone or something now. So go get it, and thank you for being here. Let's see, what else we got to talk about? Don't forget, next week we have Katori Hall. Katori Hall will be here next week. And as we look at all those October guests we have, Cheyenne Jackson at the end. He'll tell some very funny stories about rehearsing Altar Boys in my apartment. And we, of course, end with something to make you smile. Something to make you smile. Mary, why don't you come on and tell everyone, we haven't seen you in so long. Tell everyone what the something to make you smile is.
Hello.
Go ahead, introduce it. I'm giving you a little guest spot right here and now. Go for it.
Great.
Take me out of the picture.
Take you out? Okay.
Yeah. Now
Goodbye.
You do it. Take us. Bye, everybody.
Bye. Okay, well, hello, everybody. Tonight's Something to Make You Smile is a video called I Am America by Shea Diamond. As you can see here, if you're familiar with The Ensemblist, which is a podcast, now a huge platform that celebrates ensembles across the country in the theater industry, they teamed up with Elliot Maddox and Pierre Marias, I believe, and put together this wonderful video, this musical video that tells you how to vote. There are 4 different ways to vote. So we're going to actually play the video for you right now. So stay tuned, and we'll see you next week afterwards. All right.
And I'm burning